This is Triple Divide Peak in Montana. Triple Divide Peak is special because rain and melting snow can flow west to the Pacific Ocean, north to the Arctic Ocean, or east to the Atlantic Ocean. And this is us. We're four friends following the water from Triple Divide Peak, 3,500 miles by canoe to the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. This is the story of our rivers on the river.
Welcome back to On the River.
This week, we crossed the last 3 reservoirs on the Missouri River. Now we are enjoying the current on our way to Sioux City, Iowa.
We've been having so much fun exploring and playing in the water, but I also love to explore the land. The land right next to the water is called the riparian zone, and it is full of life. In the riparian zone, I like to look for animals. I especially like to look for herpetofauna.
What?
Herpetofauna. That's reptiles and amphibians. Herpetologists study herpetofauna. Anybody home?
Look at this hognose snake I just found. She had a pretty interesting question for me. Go ahead, ask the question again. What's the difference between an amphibian and a reptile? Good question. Well, before I talk about the differences, let me tell you about the similarities. All reptiles and amphibians, including this hognose snake, are vertebrates. That means they have a backbone, just like you and me. These guys are also ectothermic. Ectothermic is a really big word to mean cold-blooded, but it doesn't mean they have cold blood. It means that when the temperature is cold out, they're cold, and when the temperature is warm out, they're warm. Humans, we're not cold-blooded. We're always about 98.6 degrees. But this hognose snake, he can't maintain his body temperature by sweating or shivering. So when it's hot out, he might hide under some rocks or logs, and when it's cold out, he'll bask on a log and get warm from the sun. Another similarity between amphibians and reptiles is that they usually lay eggs. I say usually because one of the reasons I love herps is because there's an exception to every rule. In fact, one time I caught a garter snake. That's a snake you see a lot of times in your garden, and it gave birth to live baby snakes in my hand.
But there are a lot of differences between amphibians and reptiles. In fact, reptiles are more closely related to birds than frogs.
Wait, hang on a second. How come herpetology isn't the study of reptiles and birds then?
Because a long time ago, when scientists didn't know as much about animals, whenever they saw a reptile or an amphibian, they did this. But for me and my friends, when we see reptiles and amphibians, we do this.
Here is a picture of 2 similar-looking animals. The lizard is a reptile and the salamander is an amphibian. They're both vertebrates, they're both cold-blooded, and they both lay eggs. But can you spot any differences? If you notice that the lizard has scales, then you found one difference. All reptiles have scales and amphibians don't. Amphibians have moist, smooth skin that can absorb water from their environment. You might have noticed that the lizard has claws and the salamander doesn't. If you notice this, then you noticed another difference. Amphibians don't have claws, but most reptiles do. Now that you know that reptiles have claws and scaly skin, and that amphibians don't have claws and they have smooth skin, you can help me identify some of the animals we've seen along the river. Earlier in the trip, I was searching the banks and I caught this small critter. Can you tell if it was a reptile or an amphibian? It's not always easy to see, but this soft-shelled turtle is a reptile. Can you see its claws? This reptile is adapted for life in the water. That wasn't the only cute animal I've seen on this trip. The other day, I was tiptoeing through the riparian zone and I spotted a snake. But I didn't mess with the snake, I just took its picture. Notice how the snake is not attacking me or even rattling. That is because I'm far enough away that the snake doesn't feel threatened. Only scared snakes are dangerous, because when they're scared, they fight for their lives, just like we would. Just imagine if I started poking you with a stick. You would fight back, maybe even karate chop me. But snakes can't karate chop, so they bite. When I found that snake, I stayed far back, so I wasn't scared, so no one got hurt, including the snake. Luckily, I'm a professional, and I can catch non-venomous snakes. Are snakes reptiles or amphibians? Yep, they're reptiles. Look at those scales. We've only seen reptiles so far. I guess that means we've saved my favorite for the end. Amphibians are my favorite. In fact, in college, I studied wildlife biology, and now I get paid real money to search for them at work. Let's go find some right now. There's one. There's one. Do you see it? Oh, I'm gonna take off my shoes. It's gonna be muddy.
Ah! I didn't catch it!
Oh, Sarah! What are you doing? You don't have to go swimming. I caught one in the mud right here.
Is this an amphibian or a reptile? Frogs are amphibians. We know this because frogs don't have claws and they have scaleless skin. Frogs also have strong, powerful legs for jumping to escape predators. That is why I had such a hard time catching them and why Nia can hardly hold on to them. Luckily, the next species wasn't as fast. Is this a reptile or an amphibian? It's an amphibian. You can tell because it doesn't have claws or scales. It's kind of tricky because the skin doesn't look smooth, but those tiny bumps are not scales, they're actually poison glands. Toads don't have to be fast like the frog because they defend themselves by using poison to taste bad. It's a good thing I let this toad go and didn't try and eat it. And how about these? These are amphibians. They're tadpoles and they undergo a process called metamorphosis, meaning that they change from one form to another. Most amphibians metamorphose from a larval stage to an adult. Reptiles don't. So that is another difference between amphibians and reptiles. Now you know the difference between a reptile and amphibian. So you can go outside, explore the riparian zone, and classify animals just like scientists do. Remember, putting animals in groups helps make sense of the incredible diversity the planet has to offer. It is so awesome to be out here, and we can't wait to see you again. See you next time when we take 5 on the river.